Hey guys, welcome back to another tutorial. I do apologize for not being here the last couple of weeks consistently. I am running a little bit behind, but that's because I'm working on a Christmas/winter series for you guys. I'm a little bit late to the holiday season Tumbler tutorials, so I figured I would just put them out in like a week-long series or something. I don't know the exact amount of days yet, but that's what I've been working on behind the scenes, busting my butt, so good reasoning for being gone, right? Anyways, so today we're going to be working on this fall tumbler. I know I'm behind. This probably should have been out like a couple of months ago, but it's still relevant. You can still use, obviously all these tips and tricks in future tutorials and kind of cater them to whatever season we're working in. We're working with a 24-ounce straight from the Tipsy Magnolia, and I did pop off the bottom. I do have past tutorials teaching you guys how to do that if you need help with that. But I just taped it off about 2/3 at the top and then 1/3 at the bottom, obviously. I taped off the bottom half because we're not going to work on that yet, but I spray painted the top half kind of like a dark pinkish color. And then while keeping the tape on, I'm going to use the epoxy method to apply Fall Y'all from Peachy Glitters onto this cup. And once we get that applied, we're going to roll it in that printer paper to make sure everything is completely smooth before we let it dry. Once it is smoothed down with that paper, we are going to remove that tape immediately, let that sit for a couple of hours or overnight, and then we're going to go in the next day with our epoxy. I didn't film this part, but I did put a little bit of polyacrylic on the glitter just so it wouldn't travel down into the stainless section. That's where we're going to put our wood grain, and I didn't want any bumpies over that stainless section because we're going to spray paint it, and it's going to be very visible because it's going to be wood grain and not glitter. So make sure that that portion is completely smooth, and then once that's cured, we're going to go in, and I just used a 6-inch roll of transfer tape to cover the top half of this. You can tape it off with whatever, painter's tape, whatever you want, and then I spray painted the bottom dry, and this is very, very crucial that your spray paint is completely dry. I would let it sit for the day and make sure it's dry. Otherwise, if it's not and you're applying these alcohol inks, it's gonna muddle up into like this slimy, gross mess when you put these alcohol inks on it, and you're gonna have to remove all of the paint with some acetone. So just make sure before you're working on wood grain that this is absolutely completely dry, or you're gonna have yourself a whole mess. So what I'm doing is going in with this contour brush. I've had this for years. It's from ELF, E-L-F, I don't know how you say it, but it was like $1 or $2, and it works perfectly. It's like a really long oval shaped brush, and it creates these perfect streaks for this wood grain. So my method to applying this, I'm gonna take the brush and I'm gonna go downward towards the bottom of the cup, and then I'm going to continuously shorten my brush strokes so you get kind of that layered like tree ring effect, if that makes sense. And then on the next kind of streak, I guess I would say, I'm gonna go upward towards the top of the cup. So we're gonna alternate downward towards the bottom, upward towards the top. And then a tip that I use when I'm trying to create those shorter brush strokes to kind of close in on that like top of the wood grain, I blow on the alcohol ink while I'm brushing, and it really helps to dry the alcohol ink quickly, so you don't have as much running. You're not going to worry about it kind of going down into the other finished sections, which is really easy to do. You have to be very cautious when you're doing this to control the flow of where your inks are going, because if it runs into a finished section, it will completely wipe out all of the work that you just put in to make that wood grain, and then you're gonna have to go over it again. So just be cautious of that, and make sure you're filling in the bottom edges of your tumbler. I just kind of bring it around towards the center, wrap it around the bottom of the cup, I guess, just to kind of give it a finished look. And then once we are completely done with that, I just remove the transfer tape or painter's tape, whatever you decide to use. I don't spray seal this. I go directly into epoxying. I have spray sealed my wood grain in the past, and I will tell you, if you're doing that, your wood grain is probably temporarily going to change colors. It'll give it like this weird kind of like yellowish greenish look, and then once it's completely dry, the spray sealer is dry, it'll go back to a normal color. So if you do decide to spray seal, just be forewarned that may happen. It's not a huge deal. It will go back to normal. Just didn't want you to panic. So here is the look. And then next I'm gonna go in with my Dremel along the top rim of the cup. And when I finish dremeling this rim, I just wipe the dust off with my hands. I don't want a chance getting rubbing alcohol overspray on the alcohol ink, because keep in mind we don't have epoxy on it at this point. So I'm always cautious about that. I just lightly brush it off with either like a hand or paper towel, microfiber, whatever is your favorite. Unless you have epoxy over that wood grain, I would just be very cautious of what kind of chemicals and such you have around it, because this is really easily disturbed. So we're gonna go directly in with a decal. I don't have a clue where I got this from. I want to say I got it from TumblerCon like 2 years ago, but I have no clue where I got it from. It was just in my stash of decals. So whatever decal you decide to use, you can use. Just make sure that you're putting it on a completely shiny base. If you have any sanding marks underneath it, the epoxy won't be able to reach that sanded epoxy underneath the decal, if that makes sense. So it's never going to shine up. So make sure you're applying that towards or on a shiny, smooth surface. And then I'm going to go back into the bottom cavity here, and I'm just putting, I'd say probably 20 milliliters, 15 milliliters of Foliol in here. I did cure this in 2 sections because I found that any glitter that is dark, and we're using UV resin, I have a really hard time getting the UV light to penetrate underneath the glitter, and then it tends to not cure. So I opted to cure this in 2 sections, or 2 layers. So I made sure that both of the layers were completely cured. And then of course we're gonna pop any bubbles with a torch before we cure both of those layers. I put it under the light for probably 2 to 3 sets of 99 seconds. And then once that was completely cured, I am going to put it back on the turner for another coat of epoxy. At this point, we have 2 coats of Flynn Sisters Artist Cure resin on this cup, and I'm going to go in with the textured gold metallic from the Tech Wrap Craft. I will never be able to say that without stumbling on my words. Vinyl, and I do have a discount code for you guys now. That is Mitten5, and I will have that link in the description box as well. And we're just going to cut that out at 11.5 width by 0.06 height. Just a very dainty kind of line to differentiate the glitter from the wood grain and give it kind of just a subtle something to look at. And this cup is completely finished after a 3rd coat of epoxy. So let me know what you guys thought in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit that bell button if you want to get notified of future tutorials and this upcoming series I'm very excited about. And I will see you guys next weekend.